What's up, universe? I'm Julie. Welcome back to our channel. This is kind of a part 2 from our previous video where I talked about how to tackle Thanksgiving like a pro. So those are some of my favorite tips at winning at Thanksgiving. If you haven't given that a watch, make sure you go back and watch that video. I'll leave a link for you right here, as well as down below in the description box. But today, I'm going to be sharing with you some of my favorite recipes for Thanksgiving, whether it's side dishes or starters or soups that actually come from our blog, chefjulian.com, that are time-tested, fan faves, and that I personally cook for Thanksgiving and will probably cook for Thanksgiving this year as well. So keep on watching. In my last video, I gave a tip about always make sure you have some snacks, because with all the smells going on in Thanksgiving, you get so hungry and your guests get so hungry that almost it becomes unbearable waiting for everything to come out at the table. So why don't you try my sweet and spicy nuts? Those are glazed nuts at their best. You can even make them the day before and just have them ready, keep them in the Tupperware. They have all the notes that you want, the sweet, the crunchy, the little bit of savory, and a little kick of spice. They are a crowd pleaser, and every time you have them, everyone loves them. They go great with drinks, and it won't fill you up. Another one is my caramelized onion dip. So you just make these caramelized onions way in advance, and you hold them in your fridge because they actually last for a long time. And you know what, the bonus is that you can actually use the caramelized onions for other applications within your Thanksgiving meal if you want to. So just have a batch of caramelized onions in your fridge, turn some of it into a dip, have that with some chips, and then use the rest of the onions for something else. Savory sausage stuffed mushrooms. Okay, I made this last Thanksgiving and they were a true hit. Everybody, including our 2-year-old, well then 1-year-old son Lincoln, loved them. Everyone wanted more of them, and I had just enough left over to give away as leftovers, but everyone wanted more. They're little juicy, delectable bites of heaven. You can either serve them as an appetizer while people are just waiting for the meal, or serve it as a side dish. I tend to serve it as a side dish because I think it just goes so well with everything else. Toasted ravioli. This seems really weird to have as an appetizer for Thanksgiving. It has a little bit of the Italian-American fare, but I don't know. I think it's just so perfect because it has like the crunchy, cheesy, fried, warm, dip it in marinara sauce. It's totally different from the flavors you're gonna get from Thanksgiving. So I think it'll whet your appetite without making you feel too tired for the other food. They taste best when they're hot, fresh out of the oil. You could even have your early bird guests come and help fry them up. Just have it set up for them, do all the breading and dredging beforehand, and lay it out on your rimmed baking sheet that I mentioned in my last video, and then just have your guests kind of flip and fry them, and then you can just eat them while you're standing there, or serve it right away. I don't know about you, but growing up in my house, we always made soup. And that was kind of like a nice little warm in your belly, like starter type of thing for when the guests first arrive. Because it's always cold on Thanksgiving. Sometimes it even snows. So soup is just so comforting, right? Try out my corn chowder with sausage. And especially in Illinois, corn is so amazing, even when it's off season, like the fall, winter. It's best when it's right off the cob and you use the cobs themselves to make the soup. And then you just serve it with some salty kielbasa. And I think people will want it as leftovers, so don't feel bad making a big pot of it. You can also keep it warm in your crock pot, so you can make it in advance, keep it on low in your crock pot, and just have it ready to serve. Autumn vegetable stew. Now in my recipe, I serve this along with cheese toasts, which are so good in themselves because they're toasts that are rubbed with garlic and has melted cheese on top. And it's so good, especially dipped in the soup. But you can choose to do without and just serve the soup. The best part is everything will be in season. You have all the ingredients at your hand in the grocery store, plus you can clean out your refrigerator. If you're trying to get ready for Thanksgiving, but you have all these leftover bibbidi-bob vegetables in there, you can just toss it into the soup and actually turn it into a course for Thanksgiving. It's also a good one to know if you have leftover vegetables and ingredients after Thanksgiving and you don't know what to do with them. Like if you prep too much, then just toss it into the soup. So keep this recipe in your back pocket. Salads are very forgivable. You can make them well in advance. They can hold room temperature, but they're a great side dish to kind of fill up the plate and have a ton of colors and flavors. So we're gonna start with a kale salad with garlic croutons. Now for me personally, sometimes I don't even make the garlic croutons. The garlic croutons are bomb, don't get me wrong. When you do add them, they're so yummy. But the kale salad has been my go-to. I recently made it for a potluck. I think I made it for Halloween. I make it all the time. It's to the point where my in-laws actually expect this kale salad to be out on the Thanksgiving table. The kale is very forgiving because it needs to be massaged in the beginning anyway for it to be nice, soft, and buttery. Then it's dressed in the citrusy, bright, lemony flavor, and it is so good and a great contrast against all of the rich Thanksgiving food. Acorn squash salad. I actually serve this one with bacon-wrapped chicken tenders. Doesn't that sound amazing? But for the sake of being a side dish, you don't have to add the chicken tenders. Just make the roasted acorn squash salad. It's very unexpected to have roasted squash inside of your salad, but it's also very beautiful. And of course, it's in season and it'll be abundant, super sweet. You can even make the roasted acorn squash with just a drizzle of the dressing itself as a nice room temperature side dish of squash. Now this might sound funny for me to talk about spaghetti, but you gotta try my sausage and Brussels sprout spaghetti. This is one of my most popular dishes of all time. Honestly, I don't know if you guys know this unless you watched my previous videos, but I actually tried out for the next Food Network star and made it as a semi-finalist with this recipe. I'm not even joking. You guys gotta try it. Every single time anyone makes it and recreates it, they tell me they love it and it becomes part of their dinner rotation. For Thanksgiving, it's really appropriate because it has the sausage and the Brussels sprouts, but there's that hint of lemon. So if you don't want something that's kind of like lasagna or mac and cheese, then definitely give this one a try. And if not, it's very fall-esque, so definitely know this recipe. Go back to my recipe for Thanksgiving for 2. Now, if you're a newlywed or you don't have to host a whole army, this whole Thanksgiving for 2 is for you. I focus on making Cornish game hens. They're like miniature turkeys, right? And it's more special because everyone gets their own individual bird. And this came about from a realistic time when we lived in California and we were by ourselves. We couldn't go home for the holidays, and I decided to make it on the fly. I know Cornish game hen is not really a side dish, but I still felt like I needed to mention it. This whole meal comes with Cornish game hens with cornbread stuffing, cranberry sauce, garlic green beans, and creamy cauliflower gratin. So all together, you get all the hints and notes and essence and smells of Thanksgiving without having to cook all day long for just 2 people. I'm gonna talk quickly about some desserts. I know I said side dishes, but I gotta add something sweet. So I have a couple of apple desserts, whether it's apple tart with apple glaze or skillet apple crisp. Now the apple tart with apple glaze definitely takes a little bit more work, but it's so resourceful and creative because you peel the apples and then use the peels to cook them down and make a glaze. And that's what you use to give the apple tart that nice sheen. And the apples are shingled across the tart and they're simply seasoned, and it is just so worth it. Cut it up into little squares and hold it at room temperature. Serve it with a dollop of ice cream and you're good to go. Skillet apple crisp is amazing because we do bust out our cast iron skillet. So if you have one and you haven't used it and you don't know what to do with it, this is the dessert for you. The best part is that cast iron skillets retain heat. So you can just keep it in there, put it on the table and serve it right out of there and it'll retain its heat. Again, top it with ice cream and you're good to go. Hearty chocolate chip cookies. These are gigantic cookies based off of Levan Bakery in New York City. And these are just dense and crispy, but then they're chewy and just fluffy in the inside. They're so decadent and rich. You probably need to share one with a friend. You can serve it with some coffee and tea. And every time I make it, I freeze them. So I know that they can go straight from frozen. So if you want to make a batch, keep it in your freezer. And then when it's time for dessert, you just pull it out of your freezer and then you just bake it off. Clementine Cupcakes. This will be a surprise dessert because you do make these cupcakes with real clementines. You use the zest with a microplane. You use the juice of the clementines. You top it with a fresh clementine. And every element of it has a little bit of that citrus burst. And I think after a rich, heavy meal, a little bite of something sweet and cake-like, but also has a bright, zingy taste to it would be really appropriate and refreshing. No-bake Nutella cheesecakes with strawberries. Okay, I use strawberries, and if they're not in season, you can be creative and use anything else you want. But these are also a crowd pleaser. It's kind of like a cross between like a mousse, a pudding, and a cheesecake. And it's simple to make, and they look so beautiful in individual glasses, or you can put it in one big dish, whatever you want. But it's chocolatey, it's rich, and beautiful to look at. There's nothing more to say. If you enjoyed this whole little recipe lineup, digging back into my past from our website, chefjulieyoon.com, then let me know that you enjoyed it. Remember, you can get all printable recipes on chefjulieyoon.com. And if you watched my previous video, I did give you a tip to print out the recipes old school style and put them out on your cupboards. So you could totally do that with these recipes that I gave you. They're all written with the measurements, ingredients, and you don't have to worry about that they won't work out, especially for Thanksgiving. You know, the worst thing is to try out new recipes for a big event for guests when you've never tried it out before. But oftentimes for Thanksgiving, you're not making these recipes ahead of time because they're only appropriate for Thanksgiving. The best part of these recipes is I know that they worked out, they're fan favorites, and you can also make them outside of Thanksgiving. So if you enjoyed watching this, be sure to hit the bell for notifications so that you know every time I post new videos like this. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. I'll see you next time. Bye.